Okay, call to order this regular meeting of council, Tuesday, March 26, 2019, and maybe national anthem. Okay, this evening we have no presentations, we have no delegations, we do not have any public meetings. All right. And are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We're going to move right into the mayor's remarks. I'd like to thank everybody who attended our meeting last night at the Wainfleet BIC Church. It was well attended, and I think it was a very good exchange of ideas. Council will meet tomorrow evening for capital budget deliberations, and again on Tuesday, April 2nd for operating budget deliberations. If necessary, there will be a final budget meeting Wednesday, April 3rd. All budget meetings will commence at 7 o'clock, and these will not be live streamed. We will be raising the flag for autism awareness at 8:45 a.m. on Tuesday, April 2nd, and we'll be joined by our representatives from the Autism Ontario Niagara chapter and students from William E. Brown School and St. Elizabeth. All are welcome. The State of the Region address with Chair Jim Bradley will be at 11 o'clock on Wednesday, April 3rd at the Scotiabank Centre in Niagara Falls. And our annual drainage program open house is on Thursday, April the 4th, 2 to 10, from 7 to 9 p.m. At the Wainfleet Firefighters Memorial Community Hall to provide Wainfleet residents with information related to municipal drains and their scheduled 2019 maintenance in the township. Staff from the township will be on site to answer questions about the scheduled drainage. And our next regular meeting of council will be Tuesday, April the 9th. Okay, we move on to the adoption of the minutes from the meeting on March 5th. A mover for that? Seconder? Councillor Gilmore, Councillor McClellan. Is there any discussion, omissions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Move on now to our staff reports and recommendations. Admin staff report ASR 009-2019. That the attached appendix. Okay. Yes, Mr. Cross, would you like to speak to this at all?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the staff report that you see before you is a requirement, annual requirement under the Development Charges Act to report on development charge reserve fund activity for the previous year. So this staff report and the attached appendices is meeting our commitment to report on our reserve funds for DCs.
Thank you. So that the attached Appendix A Development Charge Reserve Fund activity be received for information, and that a copy of the report be forwarded to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing in accordance with Development Charges Act 1997. A mover for that, please. Councillor Cridlin, seconder. Councillor Van Vliet, discussion. Councillor Cridlin.
Through you, Mayor. This topic will continue to come up, I know, over the next little bit, and we are in budget. One question would just be for us to learn if we can open up the discussion with, or what the cost would be if we can obtain that from staff later to open up the development charge process.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have reached out to the consultant that the township has used in the past. We've been playing voicemail over the voicemail tag over the last 24 hours or so, and we hope to have that answered for you fairly shortly.
Okay, we have that moved and seconded, so all in favor? That is carried. And now we're moving on to ASR 010-2019, Management Municipal Act 2018 Remuneration Reporting. Mr. Cross, is there anything there you would like to speak to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just a summary of this report. By March 31st of the subsequent year, we're required under the Municipal Act to report on the Township Council and the board members' remuneration and expenses. And so the appendix to this report summarizes those amounts.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Okay, I'd make a recommendation that this report be received for information. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Gilmore, seconder. Councillor Cridlin, all in favor? And that is carried. Admin Staff Report ASR 011, request from Niagara Regional Council regarding provincial review of the regional government. And Mr. Colossa, would you like to speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this report is introducing a resolution passed by Regional Council polling all the area municipalities regarding a proposed the proposed retention of a consultant to assist the municipality, the regional municipality of Niagara, as well as all the local area municipalities in responding to the Province of Ontario's governance review that's currently ongoing. This same request is being made and being dealt with by all local area municipalities over the coming some over the past week and over this coming week in anticipation of being able to provide a response to the region of Niagara by this Thursday. It was received in very short order, so we've rushed to get it to you. And essentially what is being proposed by a consortium of all the local area municipality mayors is that a consulting firm be retained through the region of Niagara, at the region of Niagara's expense, to coordinate a response to the province of Ontario with respect to the whole governance restructuring matter.
Thank you, Mr. Colossa. Any discussion? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe, Will, can you expand? I'm a touch confused about why we need to get a consultant to advise us on something that we have yet to find out what the ground rules might be in a process. And do we not have people at the region that could fill that role and advise the region itself on the potential impacts? I'm just a little confused.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the whole intent, and I'm going to have to perhaps defer to the mayor in the end, because this is in response to an initiative that was commenced through all the local area municipality mayors. But I think the intent is that there was a general thought that the local area municipalities, speaking through one voice for all intents and purposes, that is perhaps separate and apart from the region's own internal communications, was something that they wanted to go with.
Okay, I'd like to continue, Mayor. So I just don't know what we're going to exactly speak to because we don't know what's coming. So I don't know how you address a problem when you haven't identified the problem.
Yeah, so I'll address that. In the beginning, when we knew that there were the two people being assigned by the Ford government to come down and do a governance review here in the Niagara region, the 12 mayors, we decided that we would proactively get together, and it was decided between us that we would prepare what we felt was good for the Niagara region and have that on the table ready to go for these two gentlemen coming down, as opposed to, and ultimately that would be our stance as we move forward. So we did that. We made a resolution on where we were going to go in regards to Niagara region as the 12 mayors, what we felt was right. So one of the things, because we were doing it individually on our own as municipalities, we decided that we would have to pay from our own municipal funds, each municipality, and that because of the 12 of us did not have the skill sets, that we would hire someone who had the ability to oversee it all and be able to go back and forth with the government and reflect our wishes. So that moved forward. It went through the region. The region approved it, and then the region decided to fund it. So that's where it is right now. And so that this is in the process. I think they put out information to look for a person to do that, and that's the last I'm aware of where we're at with that. So it's all in response to the governance review, and that person is going to look and examine it from just the mayor's perspective and and within the municipalities. So, Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you, Mayor. Would we have an idea of the term of this engagement and what will the municipalities see something out of it, or will it stay at the regional level in terms of the product or the value?
No, I believe that actually what they're going to do is coordinate the effort and bring it out to the municipalities as well for polling, for suggestions from the public and that sort of thing, what they want to see. I don't know a timeline, but obviously I think the reports were going in June, if I recall, early June or July, and so we're trying to get it going as quickly as we can. So, Councillor McClellan.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's been my belief over the years and what I've seen, if we hire a hired mouthpiece, and that's what this consultant is, he goes up there and he doesn't speak with the passion and the fire in his belly that you are going to go up with and fight for this town. He goes there, he gets paid his $40,000, $50,000, whatever his number is, and it's just a job, and he's going to do it. If it's the mayor of the town, if he's got any love for his town, he's going to go up there and fight for it like he's losing a kid. And I think that's what we need more than a hired mouthpiece.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Klossa.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to expand on the actual full role of the firm or the consultant that is being sought, and again, while intergovernmental relations and speaking on behalf or sharing on behalf of the municipalities is one of the jobs. One of the other things that I understand the consultant is intended to do is to undertake actual polling within each of the area municipalities in order to gauge or to assess public opinion and assess public needs and desires within each of those municipalities. In addition to that, as I say, once all that sort of polling is done, communicate that with the region as well as the area municipalities in order to come up with a final sort of product, if you will, that can be shared or communicated upwards to the province. So it's taking the sort of online poll, if you will, that the province has sort of taken as a sort of passive invitation to people, and actually instead going out to them as well in a capacity that we, as the area municipalities, sort of can't do on our own.
Yeah, and this was a proactive step by all the mayors. We decided through email back and forth that we should, get ahead of the game, be proactive. And so we met and we discussed how to go ahead with preparing what we want for the Niagara region, as opposed to these two gentlemen coming down and we just simply answer their questions and we get what we get. So, but with the 12 mayors, we decided also that we really did need someone who was able to do that work. And it's not just a short job, it's a bit of a job, and there's a bit of a timeline as well that it has to get done. So we opted for hiring. And like I say, originally we thought we would be paying on a per capita basis to do this. And then the region said they would take on the expense of it. So there's nothing negative that can really come out of this, I think. There's mostly going to be a second perspective or a professional perspective. And the product will be ours to do with what we want to as the mayors. So it's always going to reflect the best for each township and for the Niagara region as a whole. And as it says here, it's about examining government relations, public polling, and communications. So this, whoever we get for that is going to go out and do public polling, and it's much more extensive and fast because of the timeline. So that's why we ended up asking for an individual to do it. So, and the regions decided to pay for it, so it was really a bonus for us. So, Councillor Van Vliet.
That's okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So aren't we paying for the consultant anyway because it's our tax money? And isn't it a bit of an overlap of what we're trying to get away from by hiring consultants?
Yes, and yes. It is our tax money that the region goes to, that out of that 46 cents. And I know we are trying to get away from that. In this case here, I think it's, from our perspective, it was money well spent, because we're looking at having input into the future, perhaps the most serious change that could happen here in Niagara region. So we felt that it was important that we put our best foot forward to try to deal with that situation. So that's how that came about. So, any other questions? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one other question. Has the region come up with an approximate budget for hiring this consultant now that Councillor Van Vliet's established that there is only one taxpayer?
Yes, I have not heard a number and I have not seen a number, so I don't know. I think when we initially discussed it as each municipality paying on a per capita, I think Wainfleet's contribution was somewhere in the $4,000 to $5,000 range for that. So I don't know. I have to do the math on that, extrapolate it out. But so that's how that kind of went. That was very preliminary. Councillor Gilmore.
Well, I hope that's not the number for the region wide. This $450,000. That would be about a $300,000 plus consultant. I guess I just come back to my comment that we really don't know where this is going to go. It may not be that bad at all. In fact, it may just be a recommendation, or he may just say that we just have to reduce the number of councillors, which most people don't need to be polled to decide if that's a good idea. So I just don't think that I'm comfortable with supporting it. I mean, because I think it's, we have the cart before the horse. Just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so the motion before me is that this report be received and that the correspondence dated March 8th, 2019, attached as Appendix A from Niagara Region regarding the provincial review of regional government be received, and that the Council of the Township of Wainfleet endorse the request from Regional Council. And that request is that the region undertake the procurement of and facilitation for finances to hire a government relations communications firm to advise the 13 local area municipalities on government relations, public polling, and communications in regards to the provincial government review of the regional government, and that the Council of the Township of Wainfleet direct the CAO to coordinate efforts for the township in this endeavor, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the local area municipalities and Niagara Region. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Cridlin?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their discussion on this and the feedback, because this is certainly in the minds of many. So again, the proactiveness is highly regarded, but it looks like they've asked for our comments as well. So I'm grateful that they've asked for our feedback on this. Could we add a comment then that would summarize, let's say, some concern that we have perhaps with duplication on the expense and the value that we're going to get from the final review? And again, that's, I can support the motion with our feedback. I think it's asked for our feedback on there. So if that's correct, then perhaps that's the way we could go back.
Okay, that we can do. So do we have a mover on this? Councillor Cridlin, and a seconder, Councillor McClellan, and all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, building staff report. Okay, just that this report be received for information. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if I should direct this to the CAO or the author, but I noticed that a lot of the details in the appendix that we used to receive, we're not receiving anymore. The value of the permits, and the property owners, the builders, things like that. Is there a reason why it's been somewhat redacted?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe for the last several months now, we've been reviewing the information being provided in a sort of public forum to the general public as well as to members of council. Excuse me. And what we've tried to do is eliminate some of the personal information that is contained in the documents that have been previously provided. So, for example, the name of the individual making application and sort of exact details of the type of work. So what you're getting is more broader location and property-based information as opposed to personal information of the applicant or the firm associated with the property. It is consistent with reports that are being presented in agenda packages to councils when these types of reports are being presented, and we're just doing it to make sure that we're in full compliance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, specifically dealing with the privacy provisions of that legislation.
Okay, I understand most of that, but the value of the permit fee is not confidential information. And I guess my issue is that without that detail, I probably wouldn't have caught the issue that we had with Walnut Gardens and the greenhouse thing, where they were charged quite a bit of money. So the value of the construction, that doesn't really help me. So I would like to see that, at least the value of the permit fee, go back in the report. I don't have a problem with the names of the individuals. That's sort of irrelevant if if there is an issue with a fee that appears to be out of whack, then we can drill down after the fact. But I'd like to personally see that other line go back in.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we'll do, if I can, I'll make this promise. Staff will go back to double check to make sure that that won't be an issue. Again, if you look at the strict reading of the legislation, it talks about recorded financial information about an identifiable individual, and a fee paid really does potentially apply. But if we remove the name, we might be in good shape. So if you let staff take a look, and hopefully if all falls into place, next month when you get this report, in addition to value, you'll have the fee value or the permit value as well.
Just one final thing, Mayor. Yeah, that's good. I don't see the differentiation between the value of the construction and the value of the fee that, which is public knowledge to the township. If you're gonna not disclose anything, don't disclose that somebody's building a $800,000 house. That's less relevant. I just want to know what fee we're charging somebody for doing something, so that if there is something that pops up, we have a chance to correct it one way or the other. So that's my comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will do so. We'll do that investigation.
Okay, thank you. Good discussion. So can I have a mover that this report be received for information? Councillor Van Vliet, seconder. Councillor McClellan, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on now to our bylaw enforcement, non-parking administrative monetary penalty system. And I would ask that our bylaw officer, Mark Tardif, speak to that, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The report before you is in regards to a new bylaw. To give you all a brief background, the provincial court system is very overloaded with cases, and it takes quite some time to get any type of hearing in front of the courts. In 2014, the province rolled out the AMPS program for parking. This means all parking offenses would be heard in the municipality where the parking infraction took place. It was a trial run and has proved to be very successful. Excuse me, it does have an appeal process that is all dealt with in-house rather than the court system. And as I stated, because of its success and the backlog in the provincial court system, in 2017, 2018, the province did amend the Municipal Act to include non-related parking offenses for AMPS. This is, again, it follows the same basis of the AMPS for parking, for regulated timeframes, that sort of thing. It's very beneficial. It must be dealt with in a specified time. Fines under this system, the Municipal Act clearly states that they cannot be punitive in nature, but they must reflect compliance. So there's lots of benefits for the townships and the residents, opposed to, say, a 4 to 6 month hearing period just to have your first appearance in the court system. Under this AMP system, we're looking at maybe a 3 to 4 week time frame. Which is very good. Also, for a taxpayer, court is costly. This will significantly reduce the township's legal fees. It's very new still. I believe in the Niagara region, Grimsby is either close or has already rolled out AMPS. They're only using it for limited, bylaws. I have been approached by other municipalities because they do know that I have been working on this for us, and they're very excited to see how it rolls out. So this is new, and Wainfleet is, I'm proud to say, leading the pack in this new legislation. So I look forward to any questions you guys have. I do want to make one quick note that during my review of this, it was noted that the Schedule A, we are missing the medical marijuana license bylaw as a designated bylaw. This is just a draft form. When you guys receive the bylaw at the next council meeting, it will be listed in there for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing no discussion? Okay, the recommendations then are that this report be received, that council direct staff to present the draft non-parking amps bylaw attached as Appendix A for consideration at the next regular meeting of council, April the 9th, and that the necessary bylaws to provide for short-form wording of offenses for municipal bylaws currently lacking such wording be presented to council for consideration at the next available meeting of council. Do I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Gilmore, seconder. Councillor McClellan, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving on to DSR, Drainage Staff Report 004-2019. Is there any discussion on that? Up ahead. Okay, we have a mover, please. Seconder, Councillor Gilmore, seconder, Councillor Van Vliet, and no discussion? Any discussion? No, seeing none. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to our Fire Staff Report 004-2019, and I'll look to Chief Halcock to speak to that, please.
Good evening, through you, Mr. Mayor. What you see before you is in Appendix A is the 2018 Annual Report, which is a review of the fire service operations for 2018. It covers such items as the fire service mission, goals, core values, how we're set up and organized, our current roster of personnel, any recognition, resignations, promotions, appointments, and such. It also goes through a detailed list of our emergency responses, broken out by type, month, response times, the areas of which the incidents occurred. It also breaks out significant incidents, so large incidents that the municipality responded to in 2018. It highlights some of our fire prevention public education activities, some of the training and professional development that our firefighters have undertaken. Does a brief overview of our status of our stations and our apparatus and equipment, and also highlights the capital purchases and investments that were made through 2018. And kind of also briefly highlights the Firefighters Association activities that was conducted. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, discussion, questions? Councillor Cridlin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great report. It really reflects all the benefits we're seeing in the community. On page 3, again, I'm getting used to some of this stuff still. Sorry. Number 8, it talks about catastrophes. I just wondered about the bog, and maybe you could just comment on where the bog falls into our realm of catastrophes and how it might impact your world.
Okay. So when it comes to response to the bogs, the lands there are protected grossly by the province through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. The way the agreement's set up right now is, should an event happen at the bog, the local municipal fire service will respond. If it's greater than what we can handle, or if we just feel that, this is something that the province should be responsible for, then we call our partners at the MNRF, and then they come and handle the situation. If they continue that they want our assistance, then we continue to provide assistance, and then we can bill the province accordingly.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Van Vliet?
It is a really good report, Morgan. I just have a question about the 2 vacancies, the captain and the lieutenant. Are those because of people who have resigned or retired, and are they going to be filled in the near future?
So they are because of people have either resigned or retired. I've kind of held off on replacing those individuals or those positions. Given that we're under a review and possibly combining stations 1 and 2, we would end up having an extra officer that we may end up having to remove as part of a reorg. So I'm kind of holding off to see where the fire station goes. Because if we end up with 3 stations, then we'd only need the 3 captains.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Cridlin?
Thank you, Mayor. On page 28, you've got a snapshot of the equipment, and I'm wondering if maybe in the next report we could have just the overall summary financial for the 2018 year for the fire department service in the next report.
So when it comes to the financial reporting for the year end, certainly I can include that in the report, but most of that financial data comes from Treasury, and the Finance Department would provide a year-end report anyways.
And just for the general public, with the information last night about our discussion on the fire hall and impending building that may be coming, this report is an outstanding report that covers every aspect of the fire in Wainfleet for the last year. And if you haven't read it, it's a great read, and you become very well versed in how the firefighting system works here in Wainfleet. So, highly recommend it. So the recommendation is that this report be received for information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McClellan, seconder. Councillor Gilmore, all in favor, and that is carried. Okay, and now we'll speak to Fire Staff Report 005, 2019. Chief Morgan, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes, again, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this report kind of summarizes a presentation that is going to be made to the Police Services Board on this coming Thursday morning. As part of the fire station project, we have had preliminary conversations with members of the region, and part of the discussions that came out of that is that we actually make a presentation to the Police Services Board to see if there's any interest in the NRP as an emergency service partner using the facility as a community police office. At present, most of if you want to meet with an officer, you either have to meet them at your home in their cruiser or drive to Port Colborne or Welland. The intent here is that you could actually have a community office where you could meet with an officer, discuss any concerns, but also if there's any after-hours events where an officer needs to use a facility. Right now, if they're in Wainfleet and they've got to use a washroom, they've got to go to Port Colborne or Welland. There's no after-hours facilities for them. So this presentation is one that I will be making, if council permits, to the Police Services Board Thursday morning.
Thank you, Chief. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, recommendation this report be received for information. A mover, please. Councillor Van Vliet, seconder. Councillor Cridlin, all in favor, and that is carried. And now we'll move on to the Public Works Staff Report, PWSR 002, 2019, and we'll ask Mr. Nan to speak to that, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to the rest of the council. This is an annual quote that we request from our local contractors to provide us with a cost estimate for an hourly rate for their equipment to be utilized by the township. It's not strictly to be utilized through Public Works, but for any department such as fire or anybody that needs it, including bylaw. This gives us an opportunity to get specialized equipment that the township doesn't own and to be able to utilize it to a most cost-effective benefit to the township. Sometimes it's short notice that we give them because of various things that occur, and the hourly rental rate, because it's there, it gives us an opportunity to select how we prepare projects sometimes to be more cost-effective as well.
Okay, questions? Okay, seeing none. Mover, please. Oh, I have to read this first, sorry. Recommendation that this report be received, that the contractors that submitted tenders be forwarded a copy of the tender summary, and that equipment will be selected only when the proper documentation has been received, and that the supervisor in charge be authorized to select equipment best suited for a particular job from the tenders received, taking into account rates, reliability, availability, past service, and the submission of required information as noted. Equipment will be used from the contractors who did not tender only when the required piece is not available from the qualified tenders received or is not suitable based on costs or capabilities. Are there any questions arising from that? Okay, seeing none, a mover please. Councillor Gilmore, seconder. Councillor McClellan, all in favor, and that is carried. Okay, we move into correspondence. And we draw our attention to number 64. Which is the Welland Heritage Council and Multicultural. And they are seeking some funds from us for the Welland Heritage Council Multicultural Center's annual Ladies' Night, which is held at the Croatian National Home May 2nd, and it's in Welland. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to Adam. Should we approve this? I assume it would come out of our already reduced council grant line. Is that for 2019? Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gilmore. I was going to ask you the same question, but certainly if council approves it, I can incorporate that as part of the 25 already kind of spoken to.
And also there's a number of platinum for $400, gold for $300, and silver for $150, and bronze for $100. So we'll have to look at what we want to do there in regards to that. Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we at least defer this discussion to the operational budget review that's going to be held next week, and then we'll have the benefit of all the other potential applicants and see where this is going to take us.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Van Vliet, and all in favor, and that is carried. The next piece of correspondence is from the Welland River Floodplain Association, and they are asking for the, hang on. My mistake. So we're on correspondence number 65, received from Frank DeRuiter for the hall rental fee waiver for a card tournament, and referred to council. Any discussion on that, please? Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand from this, a little bit of work on this one is that there's been a few missteps or some things that have happened around it that make it perhaps something we could proceed with tonight, because I think they're stuck with where they are in the process. So it hasn't gone very smoothly. I could make a motion to approve this one and see if that gets seconded.
Okay, and just for information, the rental daily rate is $283, so you're approving that we waive that fee, or you're making that motion. Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor Van Vliet, and all in favor? And that is carried. And now we will move on to the Welland River Floodplain Association. And they are looking for a fee waiver as well for their annual general meeting. It's scheduled for April the 3rd at the Wainfleet Fire Hall. And so any discussion on that? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd move that we waive the fee for the Floodplain Association.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor McClellan, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we just received, just came in, a further correspondence from the Wainfleet Skating Club to proudly present Canadian A Saturday, April 13th. And they are looking for some sponsorship from us to advertise a full page, and the cost of that is $125. And is there any discussion on that correspondence? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion? Anybody like to make a motion? Councillor Van Vliet?
Since I was very into this organization at one time, I would think a full page is usually what we do, even going back to the 1990s. So I move that we do a full page advertisement for them.
Okay, I have before me the last one, which was a full page. So it's been done previously, but it's whatever council decides. Full page is $125, half a page is $75.
I think I said full page.
Sorry.
I said full page. That's okay.
Okay, I misunderstood you. So that's a motion to go with the full page. Seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Cridlin, all in favor? And that is carried. Is there any other correspondence in that group that anybody would like to draw attention to or discuss? Okay, seeing none. We move on to our bylaws now. And look to the clerk to read those.
That the following bylaws be read and passed this 26th day of March 2019. Bylaw number 18 of 2019 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the extension of an agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Wainfleet and ADR Chambers, Inc. for continued Integrity Commissioner services for the Township of Wainfleet. Bylaw number 19 of 2019 being a bylaw to amend Schedule C of bylaw number 10 of 2011, which provides for policies, procedures, and conditions for the operation of the Committee of Adjustment. Bylaw number 20, 2019, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a term loan agreement with the Niagara-Dorothy-Rungling Central Airport Commission. Bylaw number 21, 2019, being an interim control bylaw under Section 38 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, as amended regarding cannabis-related land uses.
Is there any discussion on any of those bylaws? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question about the interim control bylaw and how it relates to the AMPS bylaw that we'll get at the next meeting. Once the interim control bylaw, assuming it passes tonight, and the AMPS bylaw passes at the next meeting, will those two things then, as far as the penalties, they'll mesh together then? Am I clear on that?
Excuse me, through you, Mr. Mayor. So, yes, they will mesh together because the facilities that are operating that are not in compliance with the zoning bylaw will be subject to the fines under the bylaw itself. The interim control bylaw will also state that for the specified time, nobody is allowed to be in operation. So they will coincide with each other and help each other work as two bylaws for more teeth, essentially.
One other question. So, just so I'm clear, so in terms of dealing with offenses that'll fall under the interim control bylaw, the purpose of the AMP thing would be to fast track that enforcement versus the court route as an initial step, and it may develop further into other issues. But the first step will be now to proceed with enforcement under the AMPS policy. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Tardif. When we talked about the amps and there's penalties, what kind of dollar values on these penalties are we talking? Because the grow-ops are dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a $10 a day penalty isn't going to do much. So,
Through you, Mr. That is council's discretion on what any fine is going to be in the township for any municipal bylaw. So there, after the AMPS bylaw, if it is passed, the next council meeting, there will be a few bylaws coming forward as amendments. And in those amendments to bylaws, we'll have a recommended fee schedule. Council is able to make whatever recommendations to fees, penalties as they wish. However, keeping in mind the Municipal Act does state that they cannot be punitive in nature and they must be enough to gain compliance. So for operations that are making, just say for instance, $1 million a month, well, $100 fine isn't really, it's not punitive and it's not going to coincide with compliance. So you will have the discretion for a bylaw like that to raise it up.
thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Go ahead,
Sorry.
Mark.
My apologies, Mr. Mayor, to council, as well as one of the regulations that the AMPS bylaw does provide is one of these penalties can be issued to every property owner every single day that they're not in compliance. And as well, if those fees are not paid, they are treated as municipal taxes.
Okay, any other questions on these four bylaws? Have a mover for the bylaws, please. Councillor McClellan, seconder. Councillor Gilmore, all in favor, and that is carried. Notices of motion, are there any notices of motion? Okay, we have a proclamation which is a bit lengthy, which I'm reading. It's in regard to the Autism Day. Whereas World Autism Awareness Day will be recognized on April 2nd, 2019 in Canada, thanks to Liberal Senator Jim Munson's Bill S-206, an act respecting World Autism Awareness Day. And whereas autism spectrum disorder, ASD, affects more than 135,000 Ontarians, autism spectrum disorder is now recognized as the most common neurological disorder affecting 1 in every 66 children, as well as their friends, family, and community. And whereas ASD is a spectrum disorder, which means it not only manifests itself differently in every individual in whom it appears, but its characteristics will change over the life of each individual as well. A child with ASD will become an adult with ASD. And whereas Autism Ontario, formerly the Autism Society of Ontario, is the leading source of information and referral on autism and one of the largest collective voices representing the autism community. Since 1973, Autism Ontario has been providing support, information, and opportunities for thousands of families across the province. And whereas Autism Ontario is dedicated to increasing public awareness about autism and the day-to-day issues faced by individuals with autism, their families, and the professionals with whom they interact. The association and its chapters share common goals of providing information and education, supporting research, and advocating for programs and services for the autism community. And therefore, the Township of Wainfleet does hereby declare April 2nd, 2019 as World Autism Awareness Day. Okay, is there any other business? Councillor Cridlin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just to acknowledge that I'm going to be away at the next regular scheduled meeting on April 9th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other business? Okay, seeing none, closed meeting. We have nothing for the closed meeting. So we'll move to the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
Bylaw number 22, 2019, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of the council at its regular meeting held on the 26th day of March, 2019, be read and passed this 26th day of March, 2019.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Gilmore, seconder. Councillor McClellan, all in favor, and that is carried. I now have a motion to adjourn our meeting. Councillor Van Vliet, seconder. Councillor Cridlin, all in favor. And our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.